We already know that safety chains need to be long enough to provide enough slack so you can turn. They also need to be short enough so they're not dragging on the ground. But there's another factor that involves chain length. There's also some debate on whether your brake cable should be shorter or longer than your safety chains. So let's dive into this today. So we released a walkthrough video on how to connect a travel trailer. Over 300,000 people watched it in its first month. Some of those questions and comments address some very specific details that I just didn't feel necessary to include in a hitching up 101 style video. But because there was so much interest in that video, I wanted to release an update video that dives a little bit deeper into 3 very specific details of the hitching up process. There are 2 important factors here. The location of where it connects on the truck, which we already covered in the first video, and the length of the brake cable, which is something I want to discuss today. And this is where there's a lot of gray area. Should the brake cable be shorter or longer than the safety chains? So let's take a look at what happens in both scenarios. If the brake cable is shorter than your safety chains, the trailer brakes will immediately activate once the tongue becomes disconnected while your safety chains are still connected. If your brake cable is longer than the chains, your trailer brakes will not be activated should you become disconnected if the chains are still connected to the truck. The trailer brakes will only be activated if the chains become disconnected, which means you have a full mechanical disconnection from your trailer. So what's the right answer? I looked through a lot of industry articles and manufacturer videos. Some say the brake cable should be shorter, some say it should be longer. So I looked up some state and federal towing laws, and I just could not find anything that specified if your brake cable should be shorter or longer than your safety chains. What I did find was a lot of people doing one or the other, and also making their argument why they do one or the other. The folks who travel with their brake cable shorter than their safety chains want the trailer brakes to start immediately slowing down the trailer should their tongue become disconnected from the ball. One of the pros to this method would be immediate awareness. Being that there's still a mechanical connection between the chains and the truck, it's pretty likely that you're going to notice the trailer braking. Trailer braking while traveling downhill will also prevent the trailer from running through the back of the truck. So definitely some good points here, and I could totally understand why a lot of RVers choose this method. The other option is leaving the brake cable longer than the safety chains. A lot of RVers who use this method use it simply for one reason. They want to maintain control of the brakes should the tongue become disconnected. So what does this mean? Once the brake cable is pulled, it's going to immediately and fully activate the trailer brakes. When that happens, the brake controller in your truck is useless, so you're not going to have any control of the trailer brakes from inside the truck. And therefore, with the brake cable longer than the chains, you maintain control of the trailer brakes from inside the truck. I also understand the benefits here and why some RVers choose this method instead. However, there is another very important factor if you choose to make your brake cable longer than your chains. If you're going to use this method, your power cord also needs to be longer than your chains. It doesn't matter if your brake cable is still connected. If you lose your power cord, you have no control over the trailer brakes from inside the truck, period. So if you choose to leave your brake cable longer than your chains, also make sure that your power cord is longer than your chains so that you still maintain that power control if the tongue becomes disconnected. If it doesn't, this method is serving no purpose. Okay, so we're back to square one. There's legitimately good arguments both ways, and the pros for one method are kind of like the cons for the other method. So for example, with a short brake cable, you lose control of the trailer brakes immediately upon tongue disconnection. When the brake cable disconnects, your trailer brakes are fully activated. Probably not the end of the world at 20 miles an hour, but I don't know what this looks like at 60 miles an hour on the highway. I don't have a throwaway trailer or a closed course to do this on, but if you do have both of these, email me. I'm seriously interested in making that video. The disadvantage to a longer brake cable means you may not necessarily notice if you become unhitched. Again, this leaves the possibility for something to start happening. For example, the trailer sways or it runs through the back of the truck. Again, there's no laws to specific brake cable length, at least none that I can find, so I think it comes down to personal preference. I thought about this in depth. There's still pros and cons to both methods, so I think it's up to you to make this decision. One idea would be to add an additional backup camera on the front of the trailer so you could see what's going on at the hitch while you're driving. I would love to know what you guys are doing. Let me know down in the comments. I think we're going to get a mix of different answers. And if you've experienced a full trailer brake activation at highway speeds, let me know down in the comments what that experience was like. In the first video, I talk about connecting the brake cable to the frame of the truck or anywhere else on the truck other than the hitch, and nothing has changed here. I still stand behind this method. If the hitch becomes disconnected from the truck and the brake cable is connected to the hitch, it will never be activated. It's unlikely, but possible. A few viewers had commented about replacing one of their license plate bolts with an eyelet, then adding a coiled brake cable lanyard to the eyelet. This is a great idea. It's super easy. It's really quick. It only takes about 3 seconds to connect. I was personally not using this method, but my friend Joshua from RV Gear and Far reached out to me because he discovered a problem with this method, knowing that I was going to talk about this in our follow-up video. The eyelet connects to the bumper, and if you look under your truck, depending on the type of hitch you have, the bumper may actually connect to the hitch, not the frame. So if the hitch gets ripped from the frame, the bumper is also coming off and we're back to the same problem. The brake cable is never activating. So if you use this method because you think it's not connecting the brake cable to the actual hitch, take a look under your truck and make sure your bumper is directly connected to the frame. Again, I love this idea. It's so convenient. However, in my application, my bumper connects to the hitch. So let me show you another option that you can still use the lanyard, but also connect directly to the truck. Instead of running the lanyard all the way down under the bumper, add an eye bolt to this lip on the bottom of the truck bed, just in front of the access hole for the spare tire winch. A 3-inch carabiner fits right through the access hole. Just insert the carabiner through the hole and connect it to the eyelet under the bed. You can also use a quick link instead of a carabiner if that's your preference. This method will obviously require you to remove your brake cable if you need to lower your spare tire. I also realize you may not have this specific lip in the same location as I do. You may have to do something different. You may be perfectly fine with the eyelet on the license plate. My job here is to provide information, and the point of this segment is that if you're using the license plate trick, it may not be connecting your brake cable directly to the truck body. So it's definitely worth checking out on your specific truck if you use this method. So if any of you are wondering which method I use, I guess nowadays I'm in the camp of keeping my brake cable longer than my chains. Since I got this lanyard, I think it's a real easy way to hook up, and I'm going to continue using this method for now. But again, that's my towing preference. Brake cable length is something you need to be thinking about, and I hope the information in this video made that decision a little easier to make. We've got one more thing I want to cover today, but if you enjoy these videos and want to support the work we do to help other RVers, please like, share, comment, and we hope you consider subscribing. As discussed in the first video, they should be long enough so you can properly turn and short enough so they're not dragging on the road. A good benchmark is around 3 to 5 inches from the ground, but they can be higher as long as they're providing enough slack to turn. A few folks had also mentioned in that first video that the chains should be short enough to prevent the trailer tongue from hitting the ground should it become disconnected. I agree with this idea. The chain should definitely prevent the tongue from hitting the ground. The problem is this is not always going to be physically possible. Factors like the length of the chain, the distance from where those chains connect on the trailer to where they connect on the hitch, and the height of your truck come into play. All of these measurements will vary from one truck and trailer combo to the next. For example, if you have a truck that's a little bit lower to the ground, the necessary chain length needed to turn may be too long to prevent the trailer from hitting the ground. What's important is the chain length meets the first two criteria, which is being long enough to turn and short enough to not drag on the road. It's definitely a bonus if the chains prevent the tongue from hitting the ground, but again, it may be something you just don't have control over. This leads us to the next thing I want to talk about today, which is adjusting your chain length. In the first video, we discussed why twisting chains to shorten them is not correct. When you do this, you sideload the links, which weakens the chains by about 70%. If the chains are too long, you can cut links off to get to the right size. If you tow with different trucks or different hitches or plan to have a different truck in the future, cutting your chains may leave them too short for a different configuration or a different truck in the future. So another option to shorten your chains would be to just remove the hook and reposition it on the link you want to use. And then if you want, you can just zip tie the extra links back to the chain. If you don't have removable hooks, you can instead use what's called a double clevis. These are going to allow you to shorten the chain without cutting the links off. It is important though that you're using a double clevis with a tension rating equal to or higher than your chains. If you haven't seen that first hitching up video, I'll put a link on the screen right now. Definitely check that out. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed. We'll see you soon.